Hello teacups, what's brewing? I hope you're doing well today. Thank you for coming back to the channel, and I know quite a lot has happened in the few days since I last updated, so let's see if we can recap it, shall we? I don't know if you just heard the cat going ham on the camera then. If you hear that, I apologise. I think that was the same cat that ran into my house the other day. It's incredibly loud. So, we had a few videos. We had a few other things going on. I can't remember exactly where we were last time I checked in with you. I feel like we had the why are you wearing a hijab on your head? I feel like we didn't cover that last time. The thumbnail had a picture of her and the Virgin Mary on it, which, that's quite the comparison to make. But just to prove that basically head coverings have been a thing in many places, in many religions, and it predates Islam, which is not an unfair point to make. It does. I'm not going to argue with that. But her argument is that she is Christian and therefore she has a right to wear it, that she respects herself more when she does, and she's doing it out of respect for the man she loves, this man that she still hasn't met and has known for barely more than a week. So let's just take that very briefly, because I am aware that there is a huge amount of difference in opinions, not just between people of different religions in this, but there's a lot of nuance in religious belief. And one person who follows the same religion as another person is not going to have the same viewpoint. And we see that everywhere in the world in terms of politics and religion and how they interact. Yeah? So I can tell you this is what I think based on what she's told us. And I can tell you this is what I've heard based on conversations with friends, but that's the extent of my lived experience. Yes, I am in the Middle East, but no, I do not wear a hijab. I do not follow a religious practice of any kind. So there are limits to my viewpoint in that sense. I can't know Foodie's intrinsic belief systems. No one can know her that way. Even with how much she puts online, no one can know her that way. But based on what she's discussed in the past, and she went to a religious school as a kid. Actually, I did as well. I went to a Roman Catholic school when I was a kid. Didn't stick, but there we go. And she's always struck me as being uncertain about her faith. She was taught by nuns at some point, she told us. So clearly she had some kind of religious base. But she has mentioned spirituality before. She has a belief in the paranormal, and she brings up karma a lot. But she's not of any particular faith that I can see. Yes, she identified herself as Christian, but she hasn't shown any signs of practicing religion in any particular way. She doesn't go to church or have any kind of organized faith meetings. There are weird ways to say this, but basically I'm trying to encompass beyond Christianity any kind of practices that she might keep in any way. Yeah? So we haven't seen indicators of that. You don't need to be practicing to have some kind of spiritual beliefs. And as I say, we don't know her that way. We know a lot of stuff about her, but we don't know the insides of all of her thoughts on this. But in terms of using the history of head coverings as an argument for her point, I would say that Foodie is not a product of a time where either her culture or, if we use Christian, her religion demands coverings. So I feel like it's not a convincing or justified argument in her case, saying at some point people either in my location or of my religion, in so much as I identify it, wore head coverings is not a good argument for why she's wearing it now. Particularly as she was making the point that, no, this isn't a religious thing, I just think it's cute. And then it was the point of, oh, I'm doing it for him, so it kind of is a religious thing, but I'm not converting, but I won't outrule it. No, there's a better word for that. I won't rule it out. Wow, that was harder than it should have been. Let's take a little sip of coffee. And the fact that she's been adding Arabic words to her speech, which is not a usual part of her vernacular, and the fact that she's been adding Arabic music, and she's been showcasing herself eating Arabic food, like the actions do not match up with the vocabulary. What she's saying doesn't match up with what she's doing, because she can't really match them up. And whether she claims it or whether she doesn't, I still find the fact that she's wearing it to be quite disrespectful, simply because whatever may have been in the past, wearing the hijab now is known overwhelmingly as an Islamic practice. And for people who do believe in that, for people who do follow the faith, whether you agree with hijabs or whether you don't, it's an important issue, and it's based in intrinsic beliefs that help to guide their entire lives. So to play act with it is still quite offensive, it's still quite insulting. And I know some people kind of equate it as the same, because she was using the argument of, yes, I understand that in some parts of the world it's not a choice, and obviously there have been very widely reported cases in the news of women being taken away by security in the Middle East and then not coming out, essentially. I'm sure you're familiar with the story. If you're familiar with Foodie, you're probably following this. And then in France, where people are fighting to wear it. And here's the thing with Foodie. Foodie has always had the right and will always have the right, whether it's a moral right or not, whether we as an audience agree with it or not. Politically speaking, nobody is going to come knock her door in the middle of the night and drag her away. The morality police are not going to come with their sticks and hit her if her head is uncovered. Just as no one's going to do anything if she goes out with it. It's not something that she's going to struggle with in any large and impactful way in her life. She has always had the right. Whether she should, morally speaking, respectfully speaking, exercise that right is a slightly different issue. But to exercise that right, as she is privileged enough to do, with none of the belief behind it, when so many people are fighting either for or against it, when it does, whether she wants to admit it or not, form a very central issue in many parts of the world, I believe is hugely disrespectful. And that was really my take on what she was saying. You can argue it academically as much as you want, but this is where I fall on the issue. We then had a video called Torrid Haul, and guys, in a slightly more light-hearted note, because this is one of the problems I was having, and I was putting off making this video today, because when you get into very heavy and very important topics in relation to Foodie, it can be very hard to speak on them, because they're difficult topics anyway, they're hard to speak on, but especially with Foodie in the mix, because she is so frequently a caricature in so many ways that it's really hard to keep that thread of conversation clear of all her nonsense. A little bit of a jolt to what we're talking about. This was a lot more lighthearted, but she put up a torrid haul. And what made me laugh about this, among some other things, was the fact the torrid haul was 7 minutes and 49 seconds long. If you're not aware of YouTube, you have to make a video 8 minutes long in order to not monetize, you can monetize it at any length, but in order to put ads in the mid-roll. So if she had gone for another 11 seconds, if she had put on a different intro, and this is coming from the woman who used to just sit and look at the camera silently while she was eating, yeah? But if she had done that, she could have got to 8 minutes and she could have put some mid-roll ads in, which, given that she is currently cancelling all of her other social media, although the Beezer show is still going, interestingly enough, I think it's still there. But her OnlyFans has been cancelled, her Instagram is gone. Like, we're seeing a lot of other avenues of communication cutting off. And so the one video she's now doing, she didn't even make the effort to make it 11 seconds longer to be able to get some mid-rolled ads in there. She also shot it really, really carefully. So you can see here, like, my desk isn't very deep, but I tend to be quite careful the way I angle this, because if I turn, you get to the edge of my background. So you just have to be very careful with how it's shot. And she was being very careful because she had cleaned a really specific background area to be able to shoot this video, but she was still like right here. And she was like, oh, it's so messy, while trying to show none of it. But then Pete's was live streaming from her room and just revealed the back, and we're like, oh yeah, no, it's all just around outside of frame. Still up to her old tricks. Speaking of being up to her old tricks, I got a little bit confused with the timeline, but at some point before she started Only Videos, Saleh was in her chat. Now, the fact that I've just called him Saleh is going to be a talking point in a little bit, and I was so tempted to call him Salad, you've got no idea. I'll talk about it in a bit. So, he had come in, and he had been made a mod on her channel, which, you guys, speaking of serious conversations we've got to have, how vulnerable she is making herself is quite insane to me. I don't know the extent of his control on her channel other than the control he's exerting on her to change things. I don't know how much hands-on control he has on her channel. But with all the Nada stuff, if you remember when she had control of his channel, she deleted a video and it was a huge thing. And we had a big conversation about how much is Nada able to control his channel and how much is Nada able to control hers. And you would have thought the experience of the past year or two, at the very least, would have taught her that her finances and her income and her YouTube should only be controlled by her, and that it's quite dangerous to combine the two. She clearly has not learned this lesson, but I would be thinking very long and hard before I put anybody in the kind of situation, especially a new guy like this, where it could impact my income in such a direct way. Now, you could argue she's already impacting her income by closing all her other things, but you can see the difference, I think, between having a wrench and being able to actually interact with her visas versus telling her, oh, you should close this. One's got more choice than the other, I feel. But anyway, he was in the chat and it was a whole thing, and we were all giggling about it because we were like, the other mods were trying to unblock the people he was blocking because he had no idea of what's a good reason to block people, and it was quite funny to watch, really, in many ways. But then when she came live again, because she did a live called Sneaky Bees, she had demodded everybody else except him. That's something she said during it. And wow, that's a choice I would not make. I know we talk a lot about her choices, but that seemed like a bad idea. There was already a lot of talk from the Beezers. When she went to all videos, some of the Beezers have been very vocal, in the ones that usually support her, in cancelling their memberships and not supporting Chantal anymore. There's been someone going around leaving comments on like different reaction channels telling people, no, you should cancel, you should refund. And that's another conversation I'm going to have in a minute in regards to her channel. But she's playing with fire there, because I know she has an intrinsic belief that all her visas are replaceable, but she is really pushing this particular button, and she should be very careful that later, when she inevitably changes her mind, because she's so impulsive, you guys, there may not be a recovery system for this. And that's really what I'm seeing here, just how far she's going with some things. She may not be able to recover the way she's assuming she's going to. Now, she did claim on the community post, let's talk about the community post. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself because I'm getting a little bit confused with the timeline. But she has said now she's got another source of income. Now, I'm assuming this is connected to the new guy, because there's been nothing else that's changed that would change her financial outlook at all. I'm not sure. I've just got such a feeling she's going to be stuck in some kind of money laundering scheme. If she thinks she's receiving money, and then I guess if she sends it somewhere, like we've all heard the catfishing stories where women get preyed on and then they end up money laundering. And like, I'm not even thinking of all the other stuff that could happen to her if she actually ends up finding a way into Kuwait, which currently she can't because visas. I don't care what she says about, oh, Canadians can. I don't believe she can at the moment. She claims it's not a TV show because she would have to be in America, which, okay, I don't know if there are Canadian shows that are equivalent out there, but to be honest, given that the amount she makes on her channel, yes, it would tap into a new audience, but it's a weird thing where if you earn enough, being on the show, taking the year out from your channel can be less profitable than keeping your channel. I don't know where she would stand with that, but I don't think she's on a show, so it's fine. But I'd be very concerned about sources of income being connected to him, because to me that is not secure at all. And if you're going to absolutely destroy your channel and your other sources of income, then maybe make sure you're safe first. Now, she posted on the community tab that she was going to schedule a live from Biza Mansion on October 29th, because that's when she's due to move there, which apparently she's still planning on doing. I personally, I think part of what's going on here is her own rage, which we'll talk about in a sec, and part is very, very calculated. So the rage is when we saw her go live, her sneaky bees, there was still something simmering, because you've got to remember at this point, she's claiming, though how much I believe this is a whole nother story, but she's claiming that, you know, she's, oh no, I've stopped with the THC and I'm living a much healthier life and da da da. And I find it very convenient that we can't see anything behind the scenes now when she's made this apparent massive change, which she's tried to make several times and has failed on. Yeah, not at all suspicious. But even if we take it as read, when she has been in positions where she couldn't use her literal drug of choice, she has not fared well. In all situations, I'm not just talking the THC, although we all saw the Cuba rages. When she goes on a diet, she spins out in other ways. That's how the weed started. When she came off the weed, she went to alcohol. Because she doesn't do any of the therapeutic work you would need to fill the hole that she's trying to band-aid with all the other things. And as I've said before on this channel, meeting an emotional need with a physical answer is never going to work. And there is no way in the past week anything has changed significantly enough to be able to change that. So yeah, when she came online, while she was talking, you could hear the annoyance underneath it. There was a lot of conversation about her being ready to blow. She's trying to put on this very zen, no, I am at peace persona, but she can't maintain it. And this was shown to us when it came to her community tab posts, yeah? So on one hand, like I said, she claims to be off this stuff, which always messes with her emotions. She's fairly volatile as it is, and she seemed primed to rage. On the other hand, if she schedules a live for October 29th, which I'm assuming is still scheduled, but there's no way to know at the moment, because I'm obviously not a member of a channel, then people who are trying to contact YouTube and saying she's not giving what she promised now can't do that because there is a live scheduled within this month, because she didn't promise frequency, I don't believe. She only promised that she would go live. So that's the calculation I'm talking about. But she can't maintain a lot of things, to be completely honest. And speaking of memberships, let's move on. Let me say the next bit before we do, because otherwise it won't make sense. But on the community tab, she tagged Team YouTube and was like, hey, FFG is a bully. She started going after reactors again, because where else are her emotions gonna go? And she tried to go after FFG. I think this in part might have been triggered by the fact that she struck, who was it? Just Breezing, I think is the name of the channel. I think that's the name of her channel. And if I misremembered that, I apologize. And then she said, no, I'm withdrawing the strike, which is quite galling to her anyway. And then, I think I said this in my last react actually, Just Breezing revealed that YouTube had decided they weren't going to go ahead in it. So they had already said, nah, it's fair use, which would have been bubbling in her, because she would have been really young. She looks stupid every time she does this. Yeah, every time she does this and it gets overturned or she doesn't pursue it, she looks stupid. And she's already said she doesn't have the money to go after people. And I don't know what kind of new income she's got, but I doubt the new guy is going to be willing to pay her legal fees to go after all the mean and nasty reactors, right? So she went off on Community Tab about that, and then went, well, if my bullies are going to stay on YouTube, I'm not going to. And that was a real throwback to classic Chantal, like pre my reacting to her Chantal, where she used to quit YouTube every few weeks. If you're newer to Chantal, she used to quit YouTube every few weeks. There was one point at which she wasn't online for a couple of months, actually, I seem to remember. Like, there was a longer period, but that's what she did. And then after 4 hours, just like she always did, she came back. And she came back with a short. Now, I found it quite interesting. So the channel was gone for a while, but it didn't say the channel was terminated or the channel had been removed. It just said the channel couldn't be found. So her videos are all still there. I'm guessing she just privated everything. And again, Visa Show was up, so she wasn't entirely cut off. But I wonder what privating your channel does to your memberships, because there's 2 stages in memberships where it can either pause it, and if you remember when her channel got terminated, they paused the memberships while they were reviewing the termination, because if she came back, they were going to reinstate the members. But she privated a video, so did she lose the members or were they just paused then? Because this is what I mean by, be really careful how far you're willing to push this, because if for any reason she does terminate her channel, or if for any reason those members get released, bringing them all back is going to be harder than she anticipates it's going to be. Not as many members will come back, and she takes them very much for granted anyway, but she is not in her heyday. People are sick of her shit, and she keeps pushing it and pushing it and pushing it because she has no other content. Drama is the only thing she can do. She needs outrage. And there's a point at which everyone breaks out of that, and that's how we see the regeneration in many ways of the reacting community or of her audience. You remember all the people that used to be regulars in her chat that now aren't there? There are generations of Beezers, and that's what's made us so cocky. But even the current batch are tired, and the more offensive she gets and the less interesting she gets in some ways, like, it's a game of diminishing returns. You can only up the ante so much. There's only so far you can get before people just decide this isn't worth it, you know? And not everyone's as invested as I am in finding out what happens. And even I've been tired at times. I'm sure you've all noticed my reactions have gotten less frequent. Yeah, even I get tired, and you could argue I'm more invested than most because I make reactions about her. I wouldn't count on her power to bring people back and her power to have her audience follow her, because she misuses her audience so much, and you can't rely on that. But more to the point, if her members are removed, it's not like pausing memberships when she just doesn't get paid. They refund the last month, and if they refund that money, the paycheck that she thinks is safe right now will suddenly shrink a lot. And then she's gonna really see how much she can rely on this other person, because she is moving. And yes, she's paid some of the big bills, but it's expensive. When I got here, everything I needed was provided, and I still came here with a little pot of $2,000 to set myself up. She doesn't have savings. She lives outside her means, and she's gambling a lot with things that are actually important here. So I don't know. I think if she'd actually lost her members, she'd be raging right now, and we would have heard about it from members that were just there to troll. But it's a possibility, and I don't know if she's aware that's a possibility. I was leading up to a point here. I got a little bit distracted. I was leading up to a point there. But anyway, I found it a little bit convenient, and we talk about, you know, the how calculated it is, that she mentioned to the Bezos so they wouldn't disappear that she'd be back on the 29th, and then she found a reason to rage quit. But she was back because she couldn't resist. And YouTube recently has been sending me a lot of emails and messages saying, oh, shorts have been monetized. You should try putting out shorts. Not monetized. That's not entirely true. You can monetize shorts, I do believe. I don't think Chantal has, but they've enabled, what are they, super thanks? So if you look down below, I'm not hinting, by the way. It's not what this is. But if you look down below, they're not enabled on everyone's channel, I don't think, or they weren't for a long time. But you can enable something called super thanks, which is when you go down into the chats and you can kind of give, you know how you give super chats? You can attach it to a comment and you can support a creator who doesn't live stream. Yeah, I have super thanks enabled on my videos. They haven't been available to me for that long. I know they were in beta for quite a long time. So they've taken that feature and they've put it over to shorts. Now, she has all comments off right now, so she can't benefit from that. But I wonder if that's something she's keeping in mind later, because the more control this guy behind the scenes exerts over what she can do, the more she's going to need an outlet. And the thing with shorts is that it's what, a minute, and you put the camera up. It's like doing an Instagram story. So you don't need a lot of thought. It's video Twitter, essentially. And she's not going to do well with that as an instant thing. Like, she's going to show her ass, as she already is. And her message was basically saying how FFG was a hypocrite and a bully. And you remember I called him Saleh at the beginning of this? Or did I call him Saleh? I'm not sure. The thing with Arabic names, right, is that they don't translate consistently into a different alphabet, particularly with the vowels. So, for example, across my classes, both here and in Saudi Arabia, I had a lot of Mohammeds because it's a very common name, and it might be spelt with a U and ending with an E, it might be spelt with an O and ending with an A, it might be spelt with an O and ending with an E for the Ma and the Ed, yeah? So there's lots of different spellings for the name, even though it's fundamentally the same name. And the same is true of some other names as well. So Saleh can be S-A-L-E-H, it can be A-H, it can change depending. And so that causes a lot of people to either pronounce multiple times because they're not sure, or to have inconsistent pronunciation. And one of the things with the fact that we all react is, hey, you know how we're quite nitpicky? So are the comments. And, you know, fair enough. But if we sit here and we go, Saleh, Sally, Salah, Salah, Saleh, it gets old. It gets old for us. It gets old for the audience. So a thing that's going around right now is people are calling him Salad. Or I think Poppy's actually calling him Mr. Cream because salad cream, which, fight me, is the best of the salad dressings. I don't want to see you with your mayo over here. So salad is the name we're using for it, which, is it respectful? No. You know why? Because we're reaction channels. He seems really sus, and sometimes we rip the piss out of people. Yeah? It's not meant to be a friendly thing, but we're calling him salad because it's easier, right? So she thinks, oh, actually, I don't know, did FFG call him salad? I don't watch FFG. I might be mixing this up with Pulpy now. But she called him a name, and Foodie said, no, she's being racist. I'm going to assume it's salad because that's the common one that's going around, right? If it's not, and I'm completely off the mark here, apologies. Apologies to all, including Foodie, because I'm speaking on something I got no idea of. But in this case, if it's salad, don't be so effing stupid about this being racist. Of course it's not. And the fact that she's accusing it gives really big Miss Holly energy when she was railing at Miss Holly. That's saying, oh, you think the fact that I'm sleeping with a married man is offensive? Maybe that's just you projecting. Because it's anything she can think of that maybe can't be argued. And she's like, no, you're projecting. No, you're racist. Salad does not pick on any of his intrinsic attributes. Yeah, it just sounds like his name. So it's not like when Chantal called Nader a camel with AIDS. That, the camel, was related to the fact that he was Egyptian. It's not like when she called Charlie Cole relating to her black skin, as much as she would rail that it wasn't. Yeah? There are lots of examples in Chantal's history that show how changing a name can be racist. Yeah? And in fact, there was something on, this is going back a few years. Is this worth the story? Does anyone remember Jade from Big Brother? It's literally the only series of Big Brother I ever watched, way back in the day when they restarted it. So if you're not British, she was a contestant and she went back onto like Celebrity Big Brother, and there was another contestant that was Indian, and at one point she got angry, and instead of saying the contestant's real last name, she called her whatever the name was, Poppadom. Yeah? That's an example of using a name that is picking on something like your race, your culture, your nationality, whatever it is. That is an example. When she called Nada Dom, it was a little more problematic because Doms are a real thing in the world, and it didn't, what he was doing was abusive, and it didn't represent a consensual Dom relationship. So that was a little bit problematic as well. We're calling him Salad. Calm the fuck down. Yeah? Tell me what salad is insulting. It's not a homophone because it doesn't sound exactly the same, but that's literally as simple as it is. And to try and just reach so hard to make that racist, I find a little bit ridiculous. But that was her argument. That's what the short was. That was apparently worth completely undermining her flounce off of the internet and coming back 4 hours later to say. Yeah? And I'm sure we're going to see her flounce off again, because the less of an outlet she's got to rage online, the more not being online is her only defense. Yeah? So we'll see her send herself into the corner a few more times, I am sure. I'm going to turn this camera off and see if she's online, as always. But that's about where we are. That's my thoughts on it. And yeah, okay then. I hope you've had a good week, and feel free to chime down in the comments below. And thank you so much for listening. Bye bye, everybody.